We now have the patch notes for New World's next PTR, and there's some very important things on here. I'm not going to look at all of the PTR patch notes because it's simply too big, but I've taken maybe about 15 things that I think are pretty important that we're going to focus on in this video. I will of course provide the patch notes in the description below if you want to read it all. So the reason we're not going to read it all is very simple. I mean, look at the size of this thing. It is absolutely huge. A lot of things are just like little fixes and that kind of thing. Nothing really super important. It goes on to the next page and it just keeps going. There's too much in here for me to read. It would probably take about 40 minutes and that's not the kind of video I'm going to provide to you today. Now I'm going to do this in the order that it's listed. But the first thing that we're going to talk about is actually one I think we actually already knew. I just want to talk about the mutators, right? Let's just confirm that they are removing elemental resistance from the mutation effects from all mutations, and they're not going to obtain the reduction in elemental damage. That's because these were disproportionately affecting mages and they don't want that to be the case. Don't worry, things get much more interesting. The next one we're going to look at is combat changes. I just want to give a shout out to this Heart Rune Firestorm. It basically creates a tornado that damages targets in its path, and of course you can create more powerful versions like this. So you send out a 2-meter radius tornado of fire that travels up to 17 meters, unhampered by terrain, dealing 100% heart rune damage and inflicting burn to all targets hit. The burn deals 30% heart rune damage per second, every second for 6 seconds. Allies inside the firestorm gain 10% empower. Pretty cool, okay? And then these are the extra things you can get. We're not going to talk about them too much here. So here they clarify a little bit about the mitigation formula. So they've updated the PvP damage mitigation formula to better scale across a variety of players' gear scores. Okay, not really sure what that one means, but they have changed Fortify and Rend to directly scale off the player's armor rating, increase Fortify and Rend caps to account for these changes. Basically, you get less Fortify if you're in light armor, you get more Fortify if you're in heavy armor. Some clever bot things are doing all the stats there, but that's going to be very important for the meta. Now this one, I don't actually know why they've done this, but it makes sense, I guess. They've changed the critical damage calculation to be additive instead of multiplicative. I'm guessing this means we're going to just see less big criticals overall. It's going to be less important, but I'm not seeing any change here to resilience. So I'm not 100% sure what this is for or why it's here, but okay, makes sense. They've also adjusted the critical hit chance to no longer increase by your total critical hit chance for every non-critical hit that occurs. Now the chance will only increase by the weapon's base critical hit chance for each non-critical hit that is triggered. I'm not sure 100% what that means. It sort of sounds like the more you don't crit, you're likely you are to crit. I don't know if I'm reading that correctly though. They've increased the crit chance for these weapons though, the Firestaff, Board Gauntlet, Ice Gauntlet, by 6% and 2% on bow, and all the other weapons by 4%. Okay, we sort of knew this one was coming. This is just them saying we've got different colored abilities. Let's see how that is when the PTR goes live. The PTR going live, we're not 100% sure when that is. I'm guessing it's going to be this evening, right? But I just obviously I haven't seen confirmation of that. Actually, I just thought I would check, and they have actually confirmed that it is going to be tonight. It's going to be 10 AM Pacific time, and it says 7 PM Pacific time. I'm pretty sure that just means 7 PM UTC. So I'll probably be streaming that. Make sure you subscribe and watch along. Now this next one's pretty interesting because they've changed the equip load. So this is what we were all like worried about for light, medium, and heavy and stuff like that. What they have done is that they basically changed it. So instead of doing more CC in heavy, you're actually going to have reduced duration. If I'm reading that correctly, my memory is correct. So if you're in heavy, you get CC'd less. If you're in medium, you get CC'd less, but not quite as little as heavy. And in light, you're going to get the full CC. Okay, that makes sense. I think we're okay with that, right? It could be a little bit too much for light armor, but let's not worry about that right now. I mentioned in my other video today, they have changed some of the attribute bonuses. I'm not going to talk too much here, but yeah, that looks interesting as well and will change the meta quite a bit, I think. One interesting thing is that they are now making it so that there's more taunts available. We did know about that, but it's interesting to see what they're actually doing. Basically, a lot more weapons will actually now taunt when you use an ability, which is pretty interesting, right? Magic weapons have had their mana cost removed for all light attacks, so even if you run out of mana, you can still do something. That's pretty good. I'm happy about that one. I don't really play mage, but that is something I noticed when I have ever run that weapon, or a mage weapon I mean. They have reviewed all the weapons to make a clear differentiator between attacks that are intended for crowd control and attacks that are meant for damage. They've removed stagger from damage focus abilities and reduced damage for stagger focused abilities. So basically, let's say shockwave on the Warhammer, it's designed probably to be a stun rather than a damage dealer, so they're going to reduce the damage there. And then abilities where you're not really supposed to stun but you are stunning, they're going to have the stuns reduced. Okay, sounds good. And then we get into a lot of weapon specific changes. I'm going to briefly summarize here, but obviously if you want to see what your weapon is doing, you can either pause the screen or read the patch note. Effectively, Warhammer's getting nerfed. Everything here is a reduction. That's just the way it goes. Sword and Shield seems to be a bit of a mixed bag. Mostly nerfs, but there's a little bit of buff somewhere. I don't know if that's going to make it good or bad. I'm not trying to make a judgment when there's good things and bad things for a weapon. I don't know if that's going to make it better or worse, so I'm not going to make that judgment. The spear though, pretty much everything in the spear looks like a nerf. Same with the greatsword. The greatsword is getting a nerf. Rapier also looks like minor nerfs. Great axe also getting nerfs. Pretty much every weapon here is getting nerfs, which is interesting. Maybe that'll actually spice up the meta because other abilities will become more useful. So we'll see about that. Hatchet, slight nerf. Bow, slight nerf. Musket, nerf. These aren't all encompassing nerfs, by the way, but you know, Ice Spike's no longer going to stagger. Void Gauntlet, slight nerf. Blunderbuss, no nerfs for the Blunderbuss from what I can tell. They're all just little fixes. However, I think the Blunderbuss, I mean, it has a bit of a one-ball combo, which maybe could do with a nerf. I mean, I don't really play enough to make that judgment at a high level, but just when I play Arena, I get absolutely wrecked by Blunderbusses, but that's probably because I'm bad. The bow, pretty much everything here is a nerf to the bow as well. Now, the Fire Staff is getting an absolute massive rework. Like, I don't want to comment on it too much. There's too much changing. I have no idea if that's going to be good or bad. Like, look, the Fire Staff thing starts here, and it just keeps going. This is all Fire Staff changes, so the Fire Staff change is going to be absolutely crazy, and I'm not going to complain about it. So beyond just having the abilities nerf for the Greatsword, we can see this is one that I think a lot of people have wanted. Not necessarily myself, because I've been using this weapon, but they've tuned the primary and heavy attacks homing on the Greatsword to be more consistent with other melee weapons. Okay, like there's going to be so many changes. That's probably for the best, right? Otherwise this weapon was getting a bit oppressive, so it makes sense. You can see some other little nerfs like the crosscut here being increased, right? As I said, the meta is going to be absolutely massively changing. I am not the person who's going to be able to interpret this and tell you exactly what's going to be best. That's just not going to be me, right? If you're that kind of player, you'll have to look elsewhere. Everybody else, when we know what's good, maybe I'll tell you, but I don't know. Along the same lines though, Defy Death Ultimate is being changed. They're reducing the time and stuff like that. All kinds of good changes, or well, possibly good changes or bad changes depending on your point of view. But a lot of things just look like a nerf, which will be very interesting to see how that plays out. I'm just not going to go through every weapon now because like, look, here we've got traps for the musket. They've got a new passive called Steady Hand. Like, we're going to have to see some of this. Everything really you could go in depth with. Like, we could probably spend an entire video just talking about the musket and how that's going to change. Let's just wait and see for these, right? Okay, onto an interesting change here. Defenders are now going to be able to select their spawn points inside the fort. That should make defending a little bit more consistent, and you might be able to actually plan it out. I haven't done a war in forever, but I think that's a good change. I've seen a lot of people complaining about that, so I'm pretty happy that that is in here. You also can't attack target dummies inside the war now. I'm guessing that's so you can't build up your heart rune abilities. Probably, right? This one I think maybe is already in the game and it's just like a lingering patch note because they're saying that they've increased the amount of individual score when capturing or contesting the circles, but that was already in 1.8.3, so I don't know if they're like buffing it more or it's just a reiteration of that. Now this entire section is pretty damn interesting. Invasion rewards are pretty much going to get massively buffed. So improve the invasion rewards, players now receive 3 pieces of epic or greater corruption ward armor. So if you need some corruption ward gear, then invasions are looking like a pretty decent place for you. And a weapon and a chance of an invasion jewelry set. Okay, cool. Invasions now give significantly more umbral shards, territory standing, coin and faction tokens. So they actually look like they're going to be worth doing. I'm going to have to start queuing up and begging companies to let me in. Let me in! Yeah, good changes. I suspect we'll see changes like this when it comes to the darkness breaches, corruption portals, but you know, we don't have that yet, or at least I don't see that in this patch. Now this is potentially very big, but I'm not 100% sure I understand the implications right now. They've added a function to allow procedurally generated epic items to be upgraded to 600 gear score and roll an additional perk. Is this going to be back compatible? This is basically turning epic items into legendary items, or is there going to be some kind of new system in place where you do this? So basically if you don't roll a gear score 600 item when you craft it, can you now maybe like repurpose it or rehone it or something like that to get it to go into this legendary status with a third perk? This will be very interesting. It's such a small line, but the implications of this one are quite large indeed. Now, not important for everybody who's got BIS, but for everybody else, yeah, this could be pretty important. We'll obviously check this on the PTR this evening. One interesting thing here for the leaderboards, they're getting a little bit of a change already. They've removed references to quarterly leaderboards and they're replacing it with seasonal leaderboards. And that makes sense because they're going to do a new season every 3 months. So that's the plan, right? It basically is quarterly. It's just going to be, you know, they're just changing it to that terminology. Now, when does that run out? No, like, is the one that people are doing now, is that going to change? Is that going to end? I actually don't know. Maybe it'll just end on March 27th or whenever this patch is going live. Either way, interesting that they're doing that. Now, they're actually making a couple of different changes to the map. They're making it so you can change like the size of the quest pins and stuff like that. But here they say they've added functionality to change size. Well, that is what I've just said. And opacity of the in-game quest pins. I'm guessing this means that you can now disable them. Basically, if you set it to 0, you'll be able to get them off your map. So if you just want a clean map to have a look at it for whatever reason, then you can do that. There's a few other changes that I saw relating to the quest pins and the map. Like, I think they said they're going to fix artifacts and stuff like that that shouldn't be in there. So hopefully the map is going to start feeling much better. And I'm quite excited about that. So yeah, it's quite difficult for me to sit here and just turn this amount of patch notes, right, into something actually useful. There is so much here that I can't really be sure that I've got everything that's super important. When the PTR drops tonight, that it looks like it's going to be 7 p.m. UTC time, which will be like 10 a.m. Pacific time, then we'll obviously get our hands on it. We'll be able to actually understand, hey, is this actually good or not? Like, let's see, are these changes going to work? It's going to be a time of a lot of like testing, because people are going to have to check, hey, what is the best build now? That kind of question is up in the air now. The meta is going to drastically change. BIS is going to drastically change. For a lot of people, that's an exciting time. So let's see what we actually get delivered. So for me, those are the like interesting things that I've picked out from the PTR patch notes. Let me know if you think that I missed anything. I'd be very intrigued in that. If you want to support me and help me grow the channel, then becoming a YouTube member or Patreon truly is the best way. Otherwise, you can come and follow me over on Twitch. This week, I'm actually doing mostly like YouTube streams, but I will be streaming more and more on Twitch as time goes on. I've really started to enjoy it, so I'm actually missing it a little bit now that I've not done it for a couple of days. As ever though, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.